On the night of May 28, 1453, every person in Constantinople who was still alive gathered in Hagia Sophia to say goodbye. Nobles, soldiers, merchants, the elderly, the wounded, every priest and every monk in the city. They knew what was coming. The Ottoman army was outside the walls. 100,000 men and perhaps more. Dozens of cannon, including the largest guns ever built. And tomorrow night, they would give the order. The service lasted for hours. People who had hated each other for decades embraced. The city's great religious divide, Orthodox against Catholic, pro-union against anti-union, dissolved in the dark. They asked each other's forgiveness. Then the emperor rode back to the walls. What happened in those walls over the next 12 hours ended something that had lasted 1,500 years. This is the last day of the Roman Empire. Here is the thing that history textbooks get wrong. Rome did not fall in 476 AD. In 476, the Western Roman Empire collapsed. Rome, the city, was overrun. The last Western emperor was deposed. Most people think that was the end. It wasn't. Because while the West fell apart, the East was still standing. Constantinople, the city Constantine the Great had built as the new Rome in 330 AD, kept going. Same laws, same titles, same system. The emperor called himself Basileus, an autocrator. His scholars still debated Aristotle in their academies. His legal code was Justinian's. The flag still carried the Roman eagle. For 1,000 years after the Western Empire fell, there was still a Roman emperor sitting on a Roman throne in a Roman city. The Byzantines didn't call themselves Byzantines. That's a name historians invented later. They called themselves Romans. And on the night of May 28, 1453, their emperor was the last man in a line that traced its unbroken authority back to Augustus Caesar himself. 1,500 years of continuity, 12 hours from extinction. The death blow of 1453 was delivered in 1204. 249 years earlier, an army of Western Christian knights, on their way to the Holy Land, ostensibly fighting for God, were diverted to Constantinople. They were fellow Christians, fellow crusaders. They sacked it anyway. They stabled horses in the nave of Hagia Sophia. They put a prostitute on the patriarch's throne. They pillaged, burned, and killed for 3 days. And then they installed a Latin emperor and ruled Constantinople for 57 years. When the Byzantines recaptured their own city in 1261, they came back to ruins. The city that had once held 500,000 people was a ghost of itself. Economically gutted, architecturally damaged, diplomatically poisoned. The Byzantine Empire never recovered. By 1453, the once vast empire that had stretched from Spain to Syria had shrunk to little more than Constantinople itself. One city, with a population of perhaps 50,000, the size of a modest medieval market town. And when Constantine XI sent desperate letters to the Pope and the kings of Western Europe, begging for military help in 1452, the memory of 1204 hung over every negotiation. The West had already shown what it thought of Byzantine survival. His name was Orban. Some sources call him Urban. He was from Brașov, modern Brașov in Romania, an engineer and cannon maker of extraordinary skill. In 1452, Orban came to Constantinople. He had something to sell. He had designed a cannon unlike anything that had ever been built, a weapon capable, he claimed, of smashing the walls of Babylon itself. He offered it to Emperor Constantine XI. Constantine couldn't pay him. The imperial treasury was empty. He couldn't afford Orban's salary, and he didn't have the bronze to build the weapon. Orban walked out of Constantinople. He walked to the Ottoman court. Mehmed II was 20 years old when Orban arrived. The new sultan, who had come to power just a year earlier, listened to everything Orban said. Then he paid him 4 times what he had asked from Constantine and gave him every resource he needed. What Orban built was called the Basilica, the Great Bombard. 27 feet long, a bore nearly a meter across, big enough that the stone balls that came out of it weighed more than half a ton. It required 60 oxen and 200 men to move it. It traveled at 3 kilometers per day across the roads of Thrace toward Constantinople. When they tested it at Adrianople, the noise was heard 14 miles away. The cannon that would shatter the walls of the oldest surviving city in Christendom had been built by a man who came to save it. Constantine couldn't afford to pay him. On April 2nd, 1453, Mehmed's army encamped outside Constantinople's land walls. He had somewhere between 60 and 100,000 men. The city had 8,000 defenders. To put that another way, for every section of wall 100 meters long, there were perhaps 40 defenders to hold it. Those walls had stood for 1,000 years. Attila the Hun looked at them and turned around. Arab armies besieged them for years and eventually gave up. No pre-gunpowder weapon had ever made a lasting breach in 5 meters of solid limestone and concrete. Mehmed had Orban's cannon. He had a fleet of more than 100 ships. He had the best-trained professional army in the world. The Janissaries, soldiers taken as children from Christian families across the empire and forged into an elite military corps unlike anything in Europe. And he had something else. He was 21 years old. He had been reading Roman history since childhood. Livy, Herodotus, the campaigns of Alexander. He spoke 5 languages. He had spent years planning exactly this, not just any conquest, this conquest. Because Mehmed didn't simply want to defeat Constantinople, he wanted to be its heir. The bombardment began on April 6th. Orban's cannon fired 7 shots per day. It had to cool for hours between rounds. But 7 shots a day, every day, at the same section of wall. The walls that had held for 1,000 years began to crack. The defenders repaired the breaches every night. Bags of earth, timber frames, rubble. It wasn't as strong as stone, but it absorbed the cannonballs better. Softer material doesn't shatter, it deforms. Every dawn, the Ottomans would see a patchwork barrier where the wall had been. Every day, they would start again. 40 days of this. Meanwhile, Mehmed had a problem. The Golden Horn, the harbor on the northern side of the city, was protected by an enormous iron chain stretched across its entrance. As long as that chain held, no Ottoman ship could enter the harbor. The northern sea walls remained safe. He couldn't break the chain by force. So he did something that made the defenders think they were going mad. In the nights of April 21st and 22nd, Mehmed had 70 warships dragged overland, greased wooden sleds, oxen, capstans, ropes, over a ridge a mile wide and down the other side into the Golden Horn, behind the chain. When dawn broke, the defenders looked out and saw Ottoman ships sailing in the Golden Horn, inside the chain. The northern sea walls now had to be defended too. A city with 8,000 defenders had just been made smaller. On the evening of May 28th, Constantine XI gathered his commanders for what everyone understood was the final council. He asked his Venetian and Genoese captains to stay. Most agreed. He gave a short speech. He spoke of Rome, of God, of duty. Then he rode to Hagia Sophia. This is the scene we opened on. The last divine liturgy in a church that had been Christian for 916 years. Both Orthodox and Catholic rites performed together. The Great Schism healed too late. People wept and held each other and asked forgiveness. Then it ended. Constantine V made his final inspection of the walls. He looked at every section, every man. He rode back to the Blachernay Palace, went to his private rooms, and asked forgiveness from every member of his household. By the accounts that survive, he wept. Then he went out to take his place at the walls. He had no reinforcements coming. He had no crown. The political crisis of church union had meant no formal coronation ceremony was ever possible. He had no children. He had no exit. He went anyway. At 1:30 in the morning, Mehmed gave the order. The assault came in 3 waves, a deliberate plan to exhaust the defenders before committing the elite force. First, the irregular troops. Christian vassal soldiers, poorly armed, essentially used as cannon fodder to tire the defenders and probe for weakness. The Byzantines held them. The wave broke. Second, the Anatolian regulars. They breached the outer works of the Blachernae section, briefly penetrating before being thrown back. The defenders held, but barely, and they had been fighting for hours now in the dark. Then Mehmed sent the Janissaries, the professional standing army of the Ottoman Empire, men who had been taken as children from Christian families, raised in military discipline from age 7, battle-hardened across a dozen campaigns, the most elite infantry force on earth. They came as dawn was beginning to lighten the eastern sky. Then Justiniani was hit. A cannon fragment, or perhaps a crossbow bolt, the sources disagree, pierced his breastplate. The wound was deep. He was losing blood. He asked that the gate in the inner wall be opened so he could be carried to the ships. Constantine reportedly grabbed him. "The city will fall if you leave." Justiniani said nothing that was recorded. The gate opened. He was carried through. And the soldiers who saw their commander being carried away bleeding began to break. The Janissaries, screaming their war cries, felt the resistance waver and pressed harder. Within minutes, the critical section of wall that had held for 7 weeks was gone. As the first gray light of May 29th broke over the Bosphorus, Ottoman flags were appearing on the walls. Word spread through the city like a fire. "The city is taken! The city is taken!" Constantine XI tore off his imperial regalia. He didn't want to die as a symbol. He wanted to die as a soldier. He charged into the Ottomans. His body was never found. In the chaos of the falling city, among thousands of dead, the last Roman emperor disappeared. No eyewitness survived who could definitively say where he fell. One account claimed his body was identified later by the golden eagles embroidered on his shoes. But this too is disputed. The marble emperor legend says that an angel turned him to stone at the moment the city fell, that he sleeps under the Golden Gate and will return when Constantinople is Roman again. He never returned. In the afternoon, Mehmed rode into the conquered city through the Adrianople Gate. He went directly to Hagia Sophia. He dismounted outside and knelt. He picked up a handful of earth and placed it on his turban, an act of humility before God. Then he walked in. He stood beneath the dome, 916 years of Christian history above him, the greatest building in the world, silent and emptied. He walked through the ruined imperial palace, the once magnificent complex now half collapsed, its mosaics crumbling, its halls abandoned. He looked at what had been the throne room of the Roman emperors, and a 21-year-old boy who had just ended a 1,500-year empire quoted a Persian poem. The spider has become watchman in the imperial palace and has woven a curtain before the doorway. The owl makes the royal tombs re-echo with its mournful song. He wept. He had wanted the city intact. The 3 days of looting he permitted, standard Ottoman practice for a city that refused to surrender, left it gutted. He spent the following days ending the looting and beginning to restore order. He declared himself Caesari Rum, Caesar of the Romans, not the destroyer of Rome, its heir. Here is the question that nobody asks. Who killed Constantinople? The standard answer is Mehmed II, Ottoman military power, gunpowder. That answer is incomplete. The city that Mehmed besieged in 1453 was already dying. It had been dying since 1204, when Christian armies sacked the greatest Christian city on earth and left it a ruin it never fully recovered from. It had been dying because the West, when finally asked for help, offered theology instead of soldiers. It had been dying because two Italian city-states, Venice and Genoa, were too busy calculating their commercial interests to mount a genuine rescue. And it had been dying because a Hungarian engineer named Orban came to Constantinople with a weapon that could have saved it, and Constantinople turned him away. Mehmed II didn't destroy Rome. He buried what Christianity had already abandoned. But here is the other half of the story. From the ruins of Constantinople came the Renaissance. Greek scholars fleeing before and after the fall arrived in Florence, Venice, and Rome with manuscripts of Plato, Aristotle, and 1,000 years of Byzantine scholarship. Complete Platonic dialogues that the Western world had never seen. Works of mathematics, medicine, philosophy, astronomy. Cosimo de' Medici had already been cultivating Greek learning. After 1453, it became a flood. The intellectual migration from falling Constantinople helped catalyze the High Renaissance. Leonardo, Michelangelo, the Platonic Academy in Florence, a flowering of human thought that transformed the Western world. And 40 years later, in 1492, Columbus sailed west, not for adventure, to find a route to Asia that did not pass through Ottoman territory. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 blocked Europe's eastern trade routes and sent European sailors into the Atlantic. What they found there changed the world again. The building Mehmed walked into on May 29, 1453, is still standing. Hagia Sophia has been a church, a mosque, a museum, and a mosque again. It is one of the few places on Earth where you can stand and touch the actual continuity of 1,500 years of human history. The Roman Empire ended there. The modern world began there. Constantine XI charged into the walls on the morning of May 29, 1453. No one knows exactly where he fell. No grave, no monument at the spot. He simply disappeared into the chaos of the last day. But the city is still there. Istanbul, the name comes from the Greek Eistin Polen, meaning simply, to the city. Because for 1,000 years, when you said the city, everyone in the world knew which one you meant. There was only one. History calls it the fall of Constantinople, but nothing that produced the Renaissance and opened the Americas deserves to be called only a fall. Some endings are also beginnings. If this story gripped you, subscribe. There are more civilizations waiting. And if you want the full context for what came before, the Roman Empire that never quite ended is a longer story than one video can hold.